Dragon Ball, horror, kaiju, and more. Steven's Toy Reviews.
Hey there, collectors. What's going on today? I hope you are having a good one in the week leading up to SDCC 2023. So we are going to be continuing on with the Dragon Ball exclusive edition reviews, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Raditz and Gohan Kid set. So this is going to be rather unique. Why? Raditz is relatively new. It's not really a rather old release, but he's going to be back for the 2023 exclusive edition figures, and he's going to come with another figure, the first appearance of Gohan in this form in the line. That's right, when he's a kid, and he's unleashing his power. This is going to be the first time we get a glimpse of when Gohan has, quite frankly, a beast mode in him. You see what I did there? That's right. And what's really cool about this, if you look back in the history of the manga, which this is what Raditz's overall color scheme has, that blue scouter is used in the promotional material pretty much only once for the manga of Dragon Ball Z, or Dragon Ball, depending on how you want to look at things, and it's not really ever used again except for in other spin-off material like video games or trading cards and so forth. So this is going to be a real deep dive for the color scheme of Raditz. So without any further ado, because a lot of folks want to know if this is going to be worth purchasing because the price is going to be $85 at the convention, let's take a look to see whether or not he's going to be worth adding into your collection. Before we get the review formally started, let's talk about how you can get these. If you're at SDCC, you'll need to go to the Marina Terrace for the Dragon Ball Activation event area and pick up a purchase ticket, then go to the Tamashii Nations booth 3329 and make your purchase. If you're not SDCC, only surface level details have been announced at this time, but some leftover stock will be available at the upcoming Tamashii Nations New York store, which will be opened up soon, and then orders will be open on Premium Bandai starting in August for delivery at a later date. I'll have links for the Premium Bandai site once they do go live. For further information on all of that goodness, you can follow Bandai Collect social media and the Tamashii Nation social media at the different outlets on your screen right now. If you're going to the convention or you're playing along at home and you want to check out all of the latest updates at SDCC, head on over to en.dragon-ball-official.com/special/SDCC 2023, or you can use the short URLs that have been up on the screen so you can check all the latest information and prices for not only SH Figuarts, but all things Dragon Ball at SDCC, including the card game, Figuarts, and more. Additionally, as I stated before, you can follow Bandai Collect and Tamashii Nations on their socials found on the screen. Without further ado, let's jump into the review. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and just get Gohan out of the way here because I'm going to consider Gohan a figure instead of accessory. And out of the box, he's going to have the eyes open face, if we will. Eyes open and then squinting. And I will say they actually did put a lot of detail into Gohan, and I am rather pleased because this could have been something where, you know, they could have just put something together and pushed it out. But no, they actually did a rather good job with Gohan, and realistically speaking, the symbol on his clothing looks rather clean. The red trim all over the body is neatly masked, including the string, the tie-off on his boots. Those look rather good. And the application for the face plates, or the head parts, whatever you would prefer to call them. We'll take a look at the other one in the accessory section. They look really fine, including the bead of sweat that is dripping down his face, or the stress watermark, whatever you would prefer to call that. Overall, I think Gohan does look rock solid, and I am very happy he came out looking good. Raditz, the star of the show, I guess you might say, though quite frankly, I think Gohan is super novel. I think this is a pure example of shading on a figure here. So overall, I think for those of you who do want shading on your figure, if you have ever said that you wanted that, Raditz will just tickle your fancy, so to speak. Raditz is going to have a bit of a pale skin tone here, so if you are looking for swappability with the original release, pretty much the only thing that is going to work and look well is going to be the Scouter. I am going to show you that in the comparison section at the end of the review, but when it comes to shading, pretty much all of the muscle on Raditz is going to have a significantly darker tone to him, which looks really, really good. And you can tell he has a lot of depth to the sculpt. And when it comes to the armor as well, more so specifically the shoulder pads and the pads around the waist, whatever you would prefer to call those, the things that dangle off, they actually have shading to it too. His armor, which normally would be like black parts, are actually a very dark blue. Not quite navy, I would say, but a very, very dark blue. Overall, I think Raditz just looks good, and there's something unique about one of the faceplates, which we're going to talk about in the accessories section. Articulation here for Raditz. It's going to be the same as the original release because it's going to be a repaint with a minor change. So this way, if you did skip the original release, or if you have the original release and you're still a little worried, then this should fix that worry. So let's talk about Gohan first, shall we? Okay, so for Gohan here, the articulation is actually rather straightforward, and he does have quite a few points though. So we're going to have to pop his head off, so this way you can get an idea of how to change the head to begin with. So the head is going to pop in on a ball joint, and that's going to be a double axis or barbell style, so you can see you can wiggle the head around. And then the actual neck, as it plugs into the body, that's going to be on a ball joint as well, so you can see the socket there. So Gohan can look around just a little bit, not too much, but nevertheless we can do some adjustments to how Gohan is looking around, so we can look up that far, down that far, and spin left and right, and rock. Ponytail is actually going to be on a ball joint as well, so we can twist it and turn it, which is all fine and dandy. For the wrists, they are going to be on pegs, so they do swivel around all the way for both of the hands, so that's pretty cool. And then the tail, it does swivel around as well, and it can pop off. So if you do want to display Gohan without his tail, you can. However, for this appearance of Gohan, he had his tail. So, yeah, that's kind of cool. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's talk about Uncle Raditz here. So for Raditz, the articulation is going to be pretty much the same as you remember, with one detail that changed from the original release, but we'll talk about that in a second. So let's go ahead and remove the faceplate so this way you can kind of see what's going on with the neck details here. So it's not going to be a ball joint, however, we are going to have a hinge, so this way the head can move forward and back just like so, and then we're going to have a swivel, so this way Raditz can look left and right. The neck, as it plugs in, will be on a ball joint, kind of, so this way he can rock around. It doesn't have a whole lot of range of movement compared to, let's say, Goku Figuarts, but nevertheless, Raditz does have the ability to look around rather nicely, and all of that hair does not really block the articulation a whole bunch, so he can look down, realistically speaking, about that far, and he can look up about that far, which is rather solid. For the hair in and of itself, it's not going to be like Super Saiyan 3 Goku, where it's going to be multi-jointed. It's just going to have one joint here, which is going to be on a hinge that allows you to move it up and down. There is going to be a little bit of a swivel where the joint plugs into this part of the hair and on the head. However, because of the way that it's sculpted, we get a little bit of movement. For the shoulder pads for his armor, we are going to have a double hinge system. So a hinge where they plug into the body and a hinge for the actual pad in and of itself. So we get 2 points of movement. For the original release of Raditz, I really could not do that with mine. So kudos to Bandai for really tightening up the joints there. Speaking for tightening up the joints, let's go ahead and talk about the shoulders, which some folks had an issue with their original release of Raditz. So for the butterfly joints in the shoulder area, they are going to be on ball joints and they do move around. Now, with the actual shoulder ball joints where they plug in here, sometimes this joint was a little bit loosey-goosey, as you can see, the butterfly joint, and then the ball joint that plugged into that was really, really tight. I know from mine for the original release it was, and for the original release of mine it still kind of is to this day, despite using some treatment. As you can see here, I did not treat this. Nope. Nor the hinge that allows you to raise and lower his arms. So that's really good. And as a matter of fact, this is why we zoom in and we can see a little bit of grease. So, one way or another, at the factory level, this was addressed. So kudos to Tamashii Nations for addressing this right at the jump, so we don't really have to worry about that for either of the arms. So that's great to see. So this one is a little bit tighter than the other one, but nevertheless, I still do not have any qualms about moving the joints at all. So we do have a bicep swivel for both of the arms. The right one pops off a little easier than the left one here. So something to keep in mind, because you do have the swappable arm parts. So you just have to pull them off like that. And then I didn't plug the face in well enough. I'll go ahead and redo that. So that will be, again, for the crossed arm parts. And then we do have double hinge elbows. Little squeaky here, but that's okay. For the wrists, we are going to have the usual Figuarts style where they plug into the forearm on a swivel, and then we are going to have a hinge. So you are going to have to adjust that swivel to adjust how the hinge looks, and then you are going to have a peg where they plug in for the hand. Okay, so you get an idea there. Now, something to notice right here, I have this little teeny tiny scratch. I do not know if it came like that out of the box or if that happened because of the ball joint. Where Raditz can lean back that far, lean down that far, and he can even push forward and back a little bit, and he can tilt a little bit from side to side. Some folks had an issue with their original release Raditz where that was an issue. Some folks had that issue with their Bardock figure. For my Bardock and for my Raditz, I didn't have that. For Bardock, the inner side of his armor actually sort of flaked off. But I don't know. If it is an issue with the scratching, something to keep in mind. If it's not, then it's just, unfortunately, for me, a small quality control issue. The flaps of the armor. Hinges. Cool. The hips. Ball joint where they plug in. Okay. Very nice. So this way, they effectively only swivel or that far forward and back. And then we do have hinges that allow them to move out just about that far. That's as far as I'm able to get them. Okay, we have thigh swivels, so we can spin the legs around like so. It seems like they only want to go about that far for me safely. They sort of put up resistance and that far in before they start putting up resistance. I'm not going to push it beyond that. All right, we do have double hinge knees where they want to bend just like that. If we do sort of fix the gap there in case you don't like them, like that. Then for the ankles, we do have swivels where they plug into the bottom portion of the leg, hinge so they move like this, and then ankle rockers like so. Toe hinge, which is always good. And then for the alternate tail part, they do like to plug in on ball joints. So you just plug them in like that. And then if you just want to look, that's what it looks like. I have not needed to use heat, as I'll make mention in the accessories section. Both of the tails plug in just fine. So, long story short, Raditz's articulation is fine. No real issues for my particular unit. Now that we're here in the accessories section, let's go ahead and talk about Gohan's alternate head sculpt, faceplate, whatever you would prefer to call it, and that's why I'm kind of struggling for the technicalities here. So for Gohan, he is going to come with an alternate head part, and the way that this works is you are going to have to pop his head off. Then you are going to attach his hair. Yep, and then he has a little bang part, effectively, and you're going to pop that off as well, then put both of those on the other head sculpt, and then pop it back on. So you see why it's just a little bit confusing for a technical name? Anyway, here's what it looks like. It's going to be him squinting his eyes, and that's when he's up in the air and slamming into Uncle Raditz's chest. Yep, and that's pretty much all Gohan comes with, aside from one other accessory I'm going to include with Raditz's here. So for Raditz, he is going to come with a crossed arm part. He's going to come with an alternate tail piece, 2 alternate sets of slightly splayed hands, and a total of 3 alternate faceplates with 1 extra support stand part for his back, so you can use a Tamashii Stage Act support stand. So let's take a look at the alternate faceplates, because this is going to be where Raditz kind of shines. So this is going to be one that I'm not too thrilled about, where Raditz is going to be smiling and looking off to the side, but that is a part of the promotional artwork and just Raditz's personality. Raditz is also going to come with a screaming face, which is characteristic of Raditz, very cool. Aside from his default, kind of stoic face and kind of angry, he is going to come with an impact face for when Gohan slams into him. And the reason that this is specific, it's very subtle. His eyes turn gray in the anime and manga, I would suppose, in panels and promotional material where he's in color, but also just look at this figure. The eyes are gray, which is a very, very nice touch. For the crossed arm piece, I always struggle getting the crossed arm pieces to work on camera. It's just something I continuously fiddle with, Raditz in particular. So here is what it looks like with his arms crossed. There you go. For the alternate tail piece, you just pop off the one that is wrapped around his body and you pop the new one in. Mine is done with relative ease, but if it struggles for you, use heat up the hole, not the tail, and pop it in. Now, for the back part of Raditz, there is going to be an alternate back piece that sits right below his hair. You're going to pop that off and pop the new part in. There's going to be a hole in the bottom to support a Tamashii stage act, where you're going to put where the claw would normally go in that hole. Honestly, I just prefer to use a claw. I have quite a few of them around, so that works for me. But for you, you may just want to use the peg in the bottom of the hole there. Now, with that being said, you do get the Tamashii Stage Act support arm here and a claw, but it is promoted to be used with Gohan slamming into Raditz. But, like I said, the Tamashii Stage Act support arm system can be used for Raditz proper, so you may use it as you see fit, though I would say maybe we could have gotten two. One for both of them. But nevertheless, considering that this is meant to recreate that specific scene, kudos to Bandai for that. The only other suggestion that I could have is some sort of impact piece for the chest, because Raditz's armor is broken, it's cracked once Gohan slams in. Even if it would have just been like an effect part that would have like clipped onto Raditz's chest, sort of like an explosion effect to signify that, you know, Gohan has a thick head, or an alternate chest piece would have been really cool. But nevertheless, it gets the point across. Thumbs up for me. Aside from that, which would have been neat to add, I don't really have any other critiques. So if you're looking for alternate effect parts or support stands or so forth, you know I have videos to help you out. Now, before we finish out the review with a comparison with the original release, here's going to be a size comparison with all of the SDCC 2023 exclusive edition releases, and you can see how well they'll stack up with some other figures you're going to have on your shelf. Just so this way you're able to see, I'm going to include the 15th anniversary World Tour Goku alongside these as well, just so you can see how well the metallic hair paint application stacks up between all of the releases. Overall, I think rather fine. All right, now here's a side-by-side comparison with the original release of Raditz. And you can just see the skin tone difference here. I really don't think I need to swap faces and go through the whole thing. But what I will do is swap the Scouters for you so you can see what that looks like. And if you swap the green Scouter on the new Raditz, you can see that, yes, manga colors there, thumbs up. So, buy now, skip, or wait for a deal. Again, as a reminder, you have to go over to the Dragon Ball activation event over at the Marina Terrace, pick up your purchase ticket, then head back over to the Tamashii Nations booth at 3329 and make your purchase there. Raditz is going to be $85. Gohan is included as a bonus. This is a super unique set, and I am very happy to have it and was able to review it for you because, yeah, I think this is going to be my favorite of the bunch of the three. That being said, though it is my favorite, I think they're all kind of winners, and the Gohan and Goku set is just a notch below this. If you're a fan of this, great. They even fixed the biggest quality control issue of the original Raditz with the arms. So it's a win. Good job. All right, and that's going to wrap up the video. Thank you so much for watching. And I do want to make sure you are following the official channel. So for social media, make sure you are following on Twitter at Bandai Collect and at Tamashii Nations. On Instagram at Bandai Collect and at Instamashi, and on TikTok at Bandai Official. Thank you to Bandai Namco Toys and Collectibles America, specifically the folks at Bandai Collect, for coordinating sending this out for a look for you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be at SDCC, so make sure you stop by and say hi. Thank you again. I'll catch you in the next video.